Before we begin, thank you very much to Jordan SD. That is abbreviation SD. Jordan himself is not in standard definition. I'm abbreviating for the sake of privacy. For joining the Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/TJOmega. Even if it's just $1 or $2, I appreciate everything that goes into that Patreon. It helps me so much. It's legitimately why I can keep doing what I'm doing right now. So thank you guys so much for your support. It means the world to me. So we looked at all the different things that Optimus Prime has transformed into over the years. I missed a couple here and there, but no huge examples. I think we covered just about all of the major things, so I thought it's only fair if we also do Megatron. Now, the difference between the two is that because Optimus Prime is the big hero, he gets a lot more of those weirder, more outlandish Transformers that are just really bizarre to see got turned into toys in the first place. For Megatron, the problem here he has is his original alt mode is illegal to sell in the US today, which means as the years have gone on, we've tried many different alt modes that are just far beyond what we originally envisioned for the Decepticon leader. So, he's probably experimented the most of any Transformer with his alt modes, which makes him a little bit interesting to look over. So once again, as with the Optimus list, I am just covering as many bases as I can. There might be a couple here and there that I skipped, and that's just, that's human error. But I've tried to compile as many as I possibly can into what I believe is a comprehensive list. So we're going to get started, of course, with the traditional spot, the Walther P38 pistol that he turned into in G1. Now, obviously, gun safety laws in America means this cannot be produced anymore, so yeah, we lost the official alt mode. Maybe for the best. I think as traditional as it is, most still couldn't understand why he would transform into a gun and let someone else wield him. It didn't make much sense, especially for a guy wearing a cannon on his arm, why he turned into a smaller gun. There's fictional reasons why, but you get the picture. Also, I remember hearing from, the gun experts that chime in on this toy is, those extra bits, the scope and the shoulder stock, all that gets added onto him is ridiculous for a weapon like that. That's what I have heard, but hey, it makes the gun look cool. So, he's not the only gun Megatron we've gotten. We've gotten the futuristic style as well. So this was the classic style, which has been done numerous times in more accurate and less accurate color schemes. But it's the last, new mold, full-size gun Megatron we've gotten. And probably the last one we ever will get. Beyond that, we had to go to vehicles, so we weren't pushing any kind of safety laws. And that includes doing realistic tanks. I mean, as realistic as a green and purple camo tank can be. Now, he is, of course, especially in later years, has had gray tanks, so it matches his original color scheme, but is obviously a much more realistic look. But this was the first, back in G2, this was the first attempt to reinvent Megatron into something that they could actually legally release. And he's had futuristic takes on this as well. So here we have a gray cannon Megatron. And this time you have the tank in both hover and non-hover varieties, just in case you want your futuristic tank to, not be confined to the ground, because why would it be? So, we've also had jets. This is from Machine Wars, and so we have a blue Megatron for the first time because supposedly names or toys on card backs somewhere there was an impression that these two, that him and Megaplex, which is in the reverse colors, mostly gray with blue accent, got mixed up somewhere. So, blue Megatron is a jet. Because I think this is our first really weird departure for what Megatron was supposed to be. They get weirder. The Unicron trilogy coming up. We've had we have also had futuristic jets as well. Of course we have. Sometimes they're just alternate alt modes like this. Sometimes you get gunships in Energon, but Megatron doesn't really need to concern himself with disguise. You know, he doesn't need the robot in disguise part. He's here to take over the planet. So it's really whatever lets him shoot the most Autobots and conquer the most, you know, most area, I guess. So yeah, he doesn't really care what his jet mode looks like. So in this case, you know, it can be futuristic, and that's not a problem. And then we also see that he's turned into cars. We have a very futuristic one that's a little vaguely Batmobile in its stylings. And that is, of course, not the only time. We have had a few car Megatrons. This one's from Alternity, and this is like the closest to G1 color scheme there is. There's a few other color schemes for it. But this is also not the only time. G2's GoBot line also included a car Megatron. So, he has been vehicular as well. I think I said it in the Optimus one. Of any vehicle mode, I think a car is obviously the most common alt mode. I think it's inevitable that just about everyone is going to get some kind of car. Even some Beast Wars characters have been recast as cars, like Cheetor. So, let's get into something a little bit different. How about a helicopter? Animated Megatron was our first look at him as a VTOL helicopter, and it's the only one that I can remember. I shouldn't even describe him as a VTOL. I don't think he's a dual rotor helicopter is what he is. And yeah, I really do like this design. I always really liked how he looked. I don't know about helicopters as for Megatron. It's not the most intimidating of alt modes, but I think for what they were going for with his original design, I think it makes the most sense for him. Animated had a sense, like, Animated was one of those first toy lines where we got Earth mode and Cybertronian mode. And it really kind of let us designate something of a rule in Transformers we kind of established in Beast Wars, which is being able to maintain your initial structure when you transform. So, for instance, his original alt mode is a spaceship. So, when you're dealing with an anti-grav flight vehicles, your probably your best equivalent is going to be a helicopter, especially when you have like this VTOL style wings set up like this Megatron had. And I actually really like when they kind of stick to what a Transformer can turn into and what they can't. You know, instead of just doing like, oh, they can just turn into whatever they scan into. No, their bodies have limits. You know, so there's just certain alt modes that work. But yeah, spaceship. We're adding spaceship to the list. And I'm rambling about a completely different topic. How about we go to a more normal jet again, this being a stealth bomber. This is from the Thrilling 30 line. And I always really liked this design, but I never encountered a version of this toy where all the joints and tolerances were solid enough to hold up. So I never really got too much playtime with this figure. But yeah, I always thought this looked cool. You know, and if you're going to make him a jet, I think a stealth bomber is probably the coolest, most intimidating looking jet you can make him. So I think that actually makes sense for Megatron. Yeah, and he just looks cool. It's not the only stealth bomber he turned into, though. He turned into a more futuristic one in Generation 2. So this set is originally I want to say Dreadwing and Smokescreen. They had to switch up the names in order to release this toy in G2. Though a few did get out as Megatron and Starscream. So it's a I'm just realizing how badly transformed he is. He's got his like arms like out here. This is something a technicality. Technically this was released as Megatron. We have to include it, though, because it also turns him into a more futuristic missile tank, which was the secondary alt mode that his stealth bomber could turn into. Actually, kind of cool way of, like, triple changing. But we've had a more realistic one as well. So this gets into BotCon's Dawn of Futures Past. And I love that set. I think it's the most brilliant idea BotCon ever had for a box set. This is ludicrously expensive on the aftermarket. Insanely expensive. Like one of the most expensive Transformers you're going to run across. And it is, admittedly, it is cool. Like it's a cool take on Beast Wars Megatron with, this Cybertronian alt mode. Really, really like it. Now, that does bring us into other BotCon Megatron offerings. We do have another truck, another military truck. This one, an armored personnel carrier. Of course, it is a it was a arms micron breakdown, or war breakdown, if we're going to be like completely literal about the name. Redone into Megatron. The first time the mold was made available in America at all, and it's just kind of a made-up Megatron. It's loosely based on movie Megatron. It was done up as this weird Cybertron's Most Wanted line. I felt it was like a really generic theme for BotCon to go with, but it let them put out a Megatron, and yeah, I'm never a big fan of this one, but we have to include it because it's a unique alt mode. Here's another unique one I shouldn't really be including, but we're going to. Right, so this is from Transformers Go. This is their Hunter Ratchet, who was actually like brainwashed into becoming a Decepticon in that fiction, which kind of makes sense because it's a gnarly looking mold. What doesn't make sense is including it on this list, but in a Transformers Legends story, there was this arc where they brought in a rainbow of Optimus Primes and a rainbow of Megatrons in order to battle off the big threats in that storyline. And the one they went for a green Megatron, because they didn't have any green Megatrons, so they recast this particular toy as Megatron. So it's a technicality. There's a fiction that lets me put this in, but yes, there is technically a SUV Megatron in the universe. Moving on from that. Okay, more traditional vehicle. Okay, we're going to Dark of the Moon for our truck or semi-truck Megatron. I guess when his main enemy has turned into a semi-truck for his entire existence, it's only inevitable that Megatron get to do the same eventually. I'm still waiting for the Optimus Prime gun. Hey, it's bright red and blue. You might get it past safety standards. This, I think, was like actually universally liked. I think this was actually one that really was one that everyone like surprisingly really liked. And this kind of went back into the robots in disguise thing. Megatron at his weakest had to have a disguise at this point. So I think it's a little bit I think it brought a little bit of character to him as well, because he had to basically hide for the first time in his life. So let's move on to we can move away from vehicles for now. Let's go into the beasts, shall we? Because the original Transformer fiction for Beast Wars was going to be a G1 continuation. The Megatron is going to be G1 Megatron in a new body. But this list is just about Megatrons in general. I don't have to split it up like Prime and Primal. So we just roll right into Alligator Megatron. It's not the most ferocious of beasts, is it? It's a little bit hard to take him seriously as a leader when he's restricted to a very slow-moving, semi-slow-moving land lizard. It's still not a bad design. I mean, I don't think casting it as Megatron is weird, but, I guess Beast Wars was having fun in its early days, and who am I to argue that? More traditionally, though, a T-Rex. I think as such a powerful beast, it is definitely appropriate for Megatron. And this, of course, this becomes classic. This becomes iconic over the years. It absolutely works for him. Perfect choice for a beast. I think it got better when it went Transmetal. Transmetal Megatron, probably my absolute favorite Beast Wars toy. If it wasn't for that fragile brown plastic, go get the metals version. It's worth the money. Or better yet, Hasbro, reissue these instead of all those shelf-warming Year 1 toys. Maybe Hasbro, you shouldn't have reissued a bunch of Beast Wars characters when they have better Kingdom toys out on the market at the same time. Just maybe. Just maybe. I love this design, though. I really want to see it again. I know there's a third party doing like a masterpiece level of this one. I'm actually looking forward to that. One of the rare third parties I would actually go for. And speaking of something that's been in third party a lot, the Dragon Megatron has been done quite a few times now. This one's getting a new Legacy release. It's going to be one of our leader class toys, so we are actually really anticipating what the new one's going to look like. I'm going to presume a lot more show accurate than this one is. But yeah, this is a classic design as well. I think, especially because going into Beast Machines, he technically still had this design. I think keeps it a little bit more relevant, even though he lost it relatively briefly. It was only a few episodes he got to have this in Beast Wars. But still, super, super cool look. Had one as a kid, the leg broke off. And then found out as an adult, a friend of mine had one 2 times over that broke in the same spot as well. So maybe there's a design flaw to this figure. It goes us into Beast Machines, where his toy did still turn into that dragon. But we also had the fiction giving us Savage Noble, which means not only did he turn into whatever that dragon is, he also technically turned into a werewolf. It's one of the more random ones on this list. I mean, technically not a werewolf, but, a wolf man of some sort. I guess that's how we play that. Bizarre toy. Really, really bizarre toy. One we're going to talk about in another series at some point, as soon as I get around to that. We go back to vehicles. Let's go back to weird. Let's get into the weird category now. As if this dragon mode isn't weird enough. How about this thing? So Construct Bots was an interesting time. I'm not sure what this vehicle mode is supposed to be. He kind of looks like a space buggy. He looks like a Star Trek, like Dune Runner kind of vehicle. It's bizarre. He looks like if like Mad Max happened like another 2,000 years in the future, and they had like a bunch of super tech to cobble together. And cobbled together explains a lot of Construct Bots now that I think about it. But this one just stands out as an oddity. I can't call it a car, I can't call it a tank, I don't know what it is, so I'm throwing it in as a separate vehicle. As far as weird ones, he did share a lot of the same weird ones that Optimus Prime got, because a lot of those toys ended up having, of course, if we're going to do Optimus, we're going to do Megatron. So he'd also had a Nike shoe from the sports label line back when Takara was doing label figures. Like they wanted designer Transformers, so music label, sports label, So, no good stock photo of this one, but it's a shoe. It's a shoe that turns into something with Megatron's head. So, how much more, how clear of a photo do you need? He also got a bear brick. Strangely enough, I think this actually works really well for him. I think of all the bear bricks, this one probably fits the best. Strangely enough, Megatron, for some reason, makes for a really appropriate bear. I think it's hilarious that his robot mode also has little bear ears too. It's just, it's a bizarre one. Moving from there, he also, remember the cell phone? Yep, Megatron got the cell phone as well. Strangely enough, still has the Autobot symbol on the screen. Not sure what that's about. I guess Megatron going in for the disguise hard if he's willing to put on an Autobot badge to fool humans. It's so lanky. This one is always so weird to me. And moving back, Optimus Prime in that video got a PlayStation alt mode, because that was like a tie-in thing. But it started with Megatron, who had the Mega Drive, or as we know it in the West, a Sega Genesis. This I loved. I loved the concept of this. I had it, and then I found out they did an actual Genesis version, which I would have wanted more, and I felt a little bit burned because I didn't want to have to basically buy the exact same toy again, just so it had a Genesis logo on it. That was a little bit unfortunate. This is where I need a little bit of like, clue me in on what you're going to do, so I don't throw my money away recklessly. But still, extremely interesting. Like, very bizarre thing to have a transforming game console, but it was fun. It was fun. How about a head? Just a big old head with spider legs. This is Megatron Megabolt, or actually, no, we're looking at the Beast Wars Returns version, which was basically Beast Machines in Japan. But in America, we had Megabolt Megatron, which was an RID release, and it was supposed to be a Beast Machines toy, but Beast Machines got canned before it actually made it to retail shelves, which is why he's got the football helmet and why it's based on, the Grandma. I was going to call it vehicle, but it's not even a vehicle. It's a ripoff of Unicron floating around the planet. But yeah, head. He's just going to be a head. He also transformed into a normal head as well. The Takara Legends version of Galvatron, they didn't like... In America, they kind of called him Nucleon. And there's kind of like tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. Just kind of like, yeah, it's Megatron. But not really Megatron. No. In Japan, it was just straight up Megatron turning into a head. Yeah, a head for Galvatron, no less. Alright, so I'm at the end of the list. And this is where one toy alone makes this complicated. Because it just doesn't stop. Now, I'm going to show you the Galvatron version of the toy, because the Galvatron version of the toy in Japan had extra modes added into it. But when they did that, the US version used the modified version of the mold. So I'm going to show you a Galvatron, but in America, the Megatron could actually accomplish all of these official alt modes. So we're going to show all of them here. And of course, I'm talking about the original Robots in Disguise Megatron, who had so many alt modes. So of the ones that we haven't done already, the ones that we have not covered in the other videos, in the other parts of this video, we have a two-headed dragon. We have a boat of some kind. At least it's marketed as a boat. We have a mammoth. It is a very anorexic mammoth when you look at it in person, but it is technically a mammoth. A bat. He has a bat mode. What was marketed as a griffin mode, but griffins don't have long necks, so I tend to call it a Pegasus mode instead. We have a wyvern, so another style of dragon, just winged arms. And then, of course, I think the one that this toy is known for the most, hand. Just a big ol' hand, which is like probably like the weirdest thing for a Transformer to turn into, just a hand. Now, one that I haven't shown here is called the Devil Ostrich mode. He also can form a somewhat convincing ostrich as well, which the designer of the toy came up with after the fact as a semi-official 11th mode, but as it was never depicted in fiction, nor was it in any like official instructions, I've omitted it from this list. But if you want to believe that Megatron has also turned into an ostrich, that's your headcanon. This is about as weird as it gets. I can't top hand. However, I do know that this list is a little bit thin on just bizarre stuff, like the Optimus Prime list had. So I'm going to leave you off on a cheat. I'm going to leave you off on a toy that was done by a company called Majorette. I think it's a French company that worked with Kabaya in Japan to release some Transformer-based vehicles that are based on Majorette's existing toy molds, little die-cast vehicles. They don't transform, so technically, this isn't a Megatron transformation. But I wanted to end you off on something funny, like a tractor. Megatron as just a straight-up tractor. This was about as close as they had to Armada Megatron in their toy library. And, yeah, somewhere in the universe, he's just digging up dirt somewhere in a construction yard. I don't know why, but hey, it's something. Thank you guys for joining me on another list. Yeah, Megatron turns into a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't know if I have any other Transformer that I can do this with. But should I come up with something, I will let you know and keep an eye out for it. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.